Hey, hello, I'm Sheli Bowman, and I am here with Shayna Melissa Stockman. And you have the most extraordinary title. Do you want to tell me what that is?
Oh, wow, we're going right there. Okay.
So,
I am officially the world wellness expert and trademarked it as well. The
so
first and only.
how did you get that?
A lot of years of what I like to say blood, sweat, tears, and fears, and then paper trails of documentation for years.
Wow. Okay. But I mean, what even how did you do the process of getting that title? That's quite
Oh,
extraordinary.
well, I have clients in a lot of states, different states, countries, and continents. So I figured I really am. I have specialists that come to me, doctors that come to me for, my services. And I'm like, wait, and people just started, calling me, and I'm like, wait, I am really the world wellness expert. And I don't know, it just took off. And then I documented it for years, and I went to the patent and trademark offices, and no one had claimed to be the world wellness expert, which blew my mind. And I'm like, wow, that is so me. I've been in the medical industry over 30 years. This is my 30th year as a registered nurse here in the US. And then I went on further to become a board certified nurse practitioner. And I know medicine's a little different where you are, but here the nurse practitioner is just about the doctor. When you come in, you order your test, we take your history, we do your exam, we diagnose you, and we write your prescriptions. So I became, after nurse, the different stages of nursing, I became a nurse practitioner as an adult health. And then I went back for my postmaster's degree and became a pediatric nurse practitioner. And I also sat for the national boards to show that I am up to the national standards. Like I passed the test and I've maintained my national board certification for 3 decades now in excellent standing without ever an incident, a claim, where's that word? Ever. So it took a lot of years, literally. I mean, I've been, yeah. I first started learning from my grandma in the 70s. That was, she
And you
raised
put
me.
something about that you'd learned from your grandma, and that was how you got into it. What's that story?
Yeah. Okay. Ironically, my grandpa was a pharmacist and my grandma was opposite. She would use food for medicinal purposes. And she taught by leading by example. She wouldn't tell me these things, but I would observe her, and I was a very observant child. And I would start noticing she was getting all her food without salt and, making peanut butter from scratch without salt. And I started noticing, and when I was taking health classes, that salt retains your water that raises your blood pressure. So I'm like, wait, grandma was trying to avoid blood pressure pills. And then I would see her eat a banana every day for the potassium for
Mm.
her heart. So I would see her use food for medicinal purposes. And my grandpa was the one that, made the synthetic drugs. So, and then I would see my grandma, all her siblings her brothers and sisters all had diabetes. And I watched grandma ate right, watched her sugars, stayed away from the sugars a little bit, stayed skinny, and never developed diabetes. So I learned in the 70s that we have the power to decide if a family gene is going to be expressed like diabetes or like she did and suppress it. And only now are we talking about genetic expression. And I'm like, no, I learned this from grandma in the 70s. Like, this is not new. It's just being exposed now,
Right. Yeah, I mean, so
Mm.
many things that are classic wisdoms have been lost, but not necessarily like you were saying before, maybe not in Asia, like in Indian culture. I use mostly Ayurvedic herbs and, you know, tend to go into that direction and more natural. And
Yes.
a lot of it's not lost in some pockets. It's more in the Western area. And of course,
Mm.
is no different. The health system here is based on the NHS from the UK because it's still technically, under British law. We still have the NHS system, and so it is very westernized medicine. And for years when I first got here, no matter what you came in with, you would get antibiotics and the same little.
Yes.
But now it's the opposite. It's almost impossible to get antibiotics but they give you the same pills for everything. Like,
Yes, and that's where I work differently. That's where I think I really deserve this world wellness title, because traditional doctors here just write you a prescription for everything and they treat a symptom. I get to the root cause. Here we call this, now I know you're in Hong Kong and I'm here in the US, so this is total opposite ends of the world, right? Like not only different countries, different continents, which thank you to modern technology. I was on a meeting this morning in the Philippines, so I was like, I didn't even have to take a flight. This is amazing. And I find that traditional doctors here just write prescriptions for everything and they treat a symptom. You come in with a headache, here's a pain pill. I'm like, no, I want to know why you have the headache. If I get to the root cause, a lot of times I could stop your symptom and I can reverse it. Your symptoms go away. And when that happens, you don't need the medicine for the symptoms to treat the symptoms that aren't there. And then without the need for the meds, you don't have the dependency, the side effects, the lethal overdoses, the drug interactions. I mean, what a concept. And so I like to merge a lot of different modalities together. I use naturopathic when possible, but I'm not opposed to writing a prescription if I need. Here I find there's usually two types of doctors, the ones that just write the prescriptions, and then the ones that think you never need a test or a prescription. And I kind of fuse it all together and I do what's best for you. Most of the time, it's not going to be a prescription if I get to your root cause. But if it needs to be, I'm not opposed to it. So that's what I think sets me apart, is I fuse multiple modalities: holistic, which is body, mind, spirit, naturopathic when possible, but I can write the prescriptions. I use, here they call it functional medicine, but I think that's kind of an oxymoron, because if we attack the function, the root cause, we usually don't need the medicine. And my grandma was teaching me this before they ever had a school of functional medicine here. So I think I was like so far ahead of the curve, you know. And here we also call it integrative as well, where I integrate in more naturopathy when possible, or a prescription into their natural alternatives.
yeah, integrative medicine is very, very big in most of the rest of the world, and not so much the States. Like in Europe, it was someone, because I was recently like doing a lot in the wellness space, and I was working with someone who was in Brussels, and he was saying that about 70% of doctors in Europe use integrative medicine. So they are the you know, they're a doctor, like a medical doctor, but 70% will have another. They'll use acupuncture, they'll use, you know, something else to integrate.
Yes.
I think the same in Australia, and certainly in Asia. There's all kinds of, you know, traditional Chinese medicine, and a lot of that is just taken for granted that you mix it, whereas in the US, it's not so much.
Yeah, here it's almost like taboo, and everything has its pros and its cons. So sometimes we might need that antibiotic in rare cases, you know, and sometimes we just need a more natural approach. So I don't know why here in the US, a lot of doctors pick one or the other. I do what's best for you. And it might be one, it might be the other, it might be both. Like if I have cancer clients, sometimes they will do chemo in addition to activating their genes that I teach them how to do. And sometimes you need to get all your warriors out. So I don't know why a lot of people in the US are, they make it seem like they have to choose one or the other, you know? And unfortunately, the traditional doctors don't know a lot about it, so they don't encourage it, you know, and they don't want to say they don't know.
I'm surprised at how little nutritional knowledge most doctors have. And
Yes.
it's like when you go to a hospital, you're probably going to be eating the worst food possible. I was in a hospital in Hong Kong, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm vegetarian, I'm gluten-free, and this and this. And they were like, you want some kanji, which is like boiled rice. It's like, does it have MSG? Yeah. It's like, this is a
Wow.
hospital. And it's like, when you think of hospital food, I just think of like, ugh. And even I was reading one, there was one study where instead of, this is in a hospital cafeteria, instead of having all the sodas near the cash register, they put water in strategic places. And then people start buying more water. But because, you know, hospital cafeterias, hospitals themselves are commercial institutions, they pimp out whatever
Money.
Yeah, exactly. So the cola company is paying them to put it by the register, they'll put it by the register. And it's just like appalling. People are in the hospital to get better.
Yes, it's like with the social media sometimes, so, who the big, the big drug companies pay
Oh, yeah.
billions of dollars. So there's a lot of things,
Well, that's,
you know.
I mean, I look at that as big pharma, and I won't even go into
Yes, yeah, let's not.
it and what happened there. But let's stay off that topic because that can just
Yes,
rile people up.
yes.
The Yeah, it's interesting because the whole big pharma thing. My husband is German, and he was reading about Pfizer and everything that was happening with that. And
Oh, yeah, don't get me started. Yeah, maybe we should stay off of that with the AI.
let's go back into you've said something MVA. What's an MVA?
Oh, motor vehicle accident here.
Oh,
Oh, MVA? Is that?
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's how I actually got into nursing. My grandma was part of it and she loved helping people and I loved helping people. And I loved science and math because I was very good at logic. I didn't like history, trying to memorize things, but I could very easily figure out formulas and things. That was easy to me. And then I was in a bad, what we call an MVA here, motor vehicle accident. And when I was in the nurse, that I saw this nurse and she befriended me. I'm this, young woman, and I'm like, I have no idea. It's my first time in the hospital, like ever. And I was like, that was my aha moment. I said, whoa, this nurse likes helping people. I like helping people. She'll never know how many lives she impacted and how many of those lives impacted more lives. And I don't want this little rippling effect. I want to create a massive tidal wave. So that was kind of an aha moment for me. I thought maybe my accident was meant to be, like that was God saying, hello, this is your calling. What are you doing? you know.
Yeah, I
Mm.
was talking well, I was doing an interview. Someone was interviewing me the other day, and I was talking about I was the CEO of a wellness Web3 project, and I said, well, with coaching, I could help maybe 15, 20 people, but with this other project, I could help millions because it was a platform for healers. And he,
Yes.
whoa, 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 whoa. Don't belittle yourself. Don't think that you only helping those 15 to 20 people. You're helping their families and their,
Yes.
kids and their generations and generations. And he's like, don't belittle what a coach can do. And I'm like, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. This is true. Like the ripple effect that you're talking about with like this one nurse, she helped you. She opened your eyes. Now you've helped gazillions of people. And this is,
Yes, because
I mean,
I've helped some of my patients. I've inspired them to become nurses and nurse practitioners. So that, her impact impacted me, and then I impacted a lot of other people. So I look at some of my patients now that are nurses and nurse practitioners, and I think that's pretty cool. And here in the US, we have a lot of cancer centers, okay? They're everywhere. Breast cancer, child cancer, they're everywhere, but we don't have wellness centers. We need wellness centers, right? Like here in the US, we put on our seatbelt in case we get in an accident, preventatively and proactively, right? We don't get in the accident and then put our seatbelt on. But I find the US is the majority of the population was trained to wait till you get a problem with your health and then try to fix it. But that's like putting on your seatbelt after the car accident. It doesn't quite work that way. And I like to call it the hard-boiled egg syndrome, right? Because it's kind of hard to unboil the hard-boiled egg. But I find like the Americans were so trained to wait till they get a symptom, but I want to more educate them that symptoms already mean that's been affecting you for quite a long time before it shows up as a symptom and before it's bad enough to even show up on a test, if the right test is even ordered.
yeah,
People don't realize that they could have diabetes for years before they start noticing they're urinating more and they're thirsty. And that's a later.
right. Yeah. And at least in Asia, at least the medicine that I'm exposed to, I remember I was going into a retreat, and we because it was a silent retreat, we had to bring our own medicine with us in case, because you couldn't even look at someone, you couldn't talk, you couldn't do. So if you got sick, you had to take care of yourself. And so, and it was in an Indian ashram. So I was getting this stuff, and an Indian friend of mine was like, you're getting all the natural things. Get something that will happen quick, because these things take time to work. And I was,
Yes, yes,
they're preventative. I want to stay well while I'm in the thing.
yes.
They
And
get sick.
yes, it blows my mind sometimes because here, there, the almighty dollar speaks a lot. So there's commercials everywhere about sunblock, for help you, avoid the skin cancer. But people don't realize most of the sunblocks here have parabens and carcinogens in them. So now you're putting something all over your largest organ, your skin, to help maybe prevent skin cancer, but now you're absorbing the carcinogen that you just put all over your body. And same with the insecticides, right? We spray on insecticides that are often carcinogenic to maybe prevent a mosquito bite. And I'm like, no. So I use more essential oils for natural insecticides.
Yeah, it's interesting because here, of course, we have the off and the the DEET.
DEET.
I don't know if you can even get DEET anymore, but it's called off deep forest or something. But most, except for off, the brand off, most of them are citronella based. All the mosquito sprays that I can buy are citronella based, which I mean, using for years, and I think it's just natural. Most people know that citronella will keep mosquitoes away.
Here it seems like 20% DEET, and that's their marketing because people know DEET works. Yes, it's crazy. And I want to help people not only increase their lifespan, live longer, it's also important to increase their health span. Like, I don't want to live to be 100 if that last 10 years is, God forbid, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. So I want to help people increase their not only their lifespan, but their health span as well. And I don't find modern medicine does that. I remember when I was in full-blown heart failure at one point, I said, this is years ago, to the cardiologist, right? Now, he's not only the heart doctor, he's the heart doctor that specializes in heart failure. And I said, Doc, with all due respect, is any of this medication gonna stop the progression? No. Gonna slow it down? No. Well, it's not helping with my symptoms. What's the point in it? I said, Doc, I need to get to the cause, because then that's the only way I'm gonna stop it from getting worse, right? So he told me, listen, 95% of my patients here, I never know what causes their heart failure. I'm like, well, that's unacceptable. It's like, I fired him. So my thing is, I tell patients this: if your healthcare provider is not getting you healthy, why are they still taking care of you, right? Fire them. And I don't know why a lot of people still continue to listen to that healthcare provider when they're getting sicker and sicker. It doesn't make any sense to me. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion, reach out to me. And I've helped so many people that the specialists couldn't, especially cancers, autoimmune, those that had reactions to, the protection. And, it drives me crazy. It really does, So now that's what I like. That's another reason I'm the world wellness expert, because I had a lot of health issues, like autoimmune problems, a lot of them, and chronic pain and heart failure. And after I helped heal myself, some of my doctors became my clients, which I think is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
How did you get to that point?
Of helping myself.
No, of getting the autoimmune, the heart issues.
Oh, yes. Well, the thing is this: with modern medicine here, especially in the US, and I know you're in Hong Kong, when you go to a traditional doctor, they treat one symptom. Oh, you're tired, here's a stimulant. Oh, you can't sleep, here's a pain, sleeping pill. They treat one symptom. They don't put all the pieces together. I like to put all the pieces together. When you have multiple symptoms from all different body parts, you have to look at the commonality. So for me, it made sense. It was autoimmune. I had a lot of the symptoms, and most people don't realize there's over 100 autoimmune disorders and diseases. 3/4 are in women. And most of the time when the doctors can't put it together, they're just look at the one symptom you came in for that day. They don't look back at the chart at the last symptom and the other symptoms you're still complaining of. And I felt like traditional docs, especially a female going to a male doctor, they blow us off like maybe, oh, it's just your hormones. Oh, you're getting older. Oh, you're working too much. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I put all the pieces together. I want to know what's the commonality. So, and a lot of us, when we have these symptoms and a test doesn't show it, it's an autoimmune disorder. I was gaining weight, I was eating right, I was exercising. I had weird rashes that didn't make sense. So all of a sudden, my 40s start getting eczema for the first time. And I didn't change soaps, deodorant, shampoos. They would come and go whenever they wanted. Between that, the hair thinning, the weight gain, severe exhaustion, even though I wasn't depressed, excruciating pain. I couldn't even function. And I was just given pain pills, and I didn't want pain pills. And then, with the heart failure, I'm like, this all makes sense. Like, I have to get to the cause. If I don't get to the cause, I'm just going to keep getting worse. And I felt like modern medicine was masking tape on garden hose. It's treating a symptom, which is good for now, but the underlying problem is still getting bigger, 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 And I'm like, listen, we could send men to the moon, in outer space. We have to do better with modern medicine than what you're giving me, because if it's a pill for every symptom, there's like how many dozens of pills do you want me on here? And it didn't make sense. So I had to be my own advocate. And I fired a few physicians. I did. You're not going to listen to me, I said, listen, I don't want a specific diagnosis. I don't want a bad diagnosis. I want the right diagnosis, So you have to be your own advocate, and you have to interview your healthcare provider. Are they going to listen to you? Are they going to give you time? How much time do they give a new patient? If you walk in a room, they never looked at your chart and they're like, hey, what are you here for? What are your allergies? What are your meds? And you're like, it's right there on all the 20 forms I filled out. So you have to be your own advocate, get a second opinion, get a third, reach out to me. I do confidential consultations, similar, video visits like this. And I love train wrecks. We call them here medical mysteries in the US. I call them medical mysteries. Doctors call them train wrecks. So those people that have been to a lot of doctors and don't know what's wrong, I know I can help them, Activating the genes is what I love. When we activate people's genes, it makes your body do what it used to do and should do. Now you're revving up your own antioxidant production. You're making more mitochondria that are required for your cells to live. You're detoxifying. We need to activate genes, and heal from within, get better from within. It's so imperative. People have no idea the power of it. I mean, so thank God, activating genes is the way to go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the biohacking, you light up when you talk about that. Let's go into how did you get into biohacking, and what is it actually like? Define it for people that don't know.
Okay, cool. So there's different ways of biohacking. Like when my grandma ate healthy, she took back the power to biohack is if you break up the word bio, like your own biology, your own internal body science. And hacking is like if you hijack a plane, you take control over. So biohacking is taking control over your own biology, kind of like my grandma did to not have that gene for diabetes expressed. But there's different ways to do it. If I smoke, I might increase my risk of lung cancer. If I'm out in the sun, I might increase my risk of skin cancer. But how I biohack is not only what I eat and ingest, but I activate different genes in my body to do different things. And there's certain herbs, natural, botanical, plant-based herbs, that when they're taken in exact proportions simultaneously actually activate different genes and different genetic highways. It's like we have different highways in our body like that activate different genes and different to do different jobs. So when I activate one highway, it makes my body rev up production of my own antioxidants. And that's what reduces free radical damage, oxidative stress, inflammation. Inflammation's not good. When we create more of I help make my body make its own antioxidants. And that literally is 1,000,000 times more potent than an antioxidant like vitamin C you can take, or a blueberry or an orange. Anything your body produces endogenously is so much more potent. You don't have to worry about, can my body absorb something synthetic, man-made? So I activate different genes and different highways with different herbs in exact proportions and capsules and caplets. That one makes you reduce that oxidative stress 40% in living humans. And that's the only thing scientifically in the world proven to reduce oxidative stress 40% on average in living humans. Nothing else in the world is proven to do that. And that's what creates inflammation, which is not good. So, it's really getting at the heart of our problems. Another pathway that I activate makes your body produce those little mitochondria. Those are the energy stations in your cells. They're required for the cells to live. People don't realize when their last mitochondria and that cell is destroyed, the cell has to die. It gets no more energy. And another pathway I activate helps your body detoxify and get rid of all that garbage that we've been storing for years so we can absorb more things. So different pathways do different jobs, and I help activate them. And that's what helped me get from where I was to where I am now. Now, those meds led to more meds, dependencies, side effects, weight gain, high sugars, high blood pressure. Now I'm off of them. I have no pain anymore. My pain was debilitating 6 to 7 days a week. I have no pain. I'm on no medications. My hair's coming in a lot thicker. I'm back to my ideal weight. Now my sugar's normal, my blood pressure's normal. I'm happy, I'm energetic. It changed my life. I have so many clients that was what made the difference. Going to all the specialists and try this and try that like they're guinea pigs did not help them, especially with autoimmunes and cancers and those that had reactions to either, the pandemic or that, protection. It's changed so many lives, and you can tell it's my passion. I love it. I got introduced to it through a professional athlete, actually. His doctor told him about it and he shared it with me. And then I looked at all the studies and I was blown away seeing studies by Harvard University, American Heart Association, like really big, credible universities. So, I love it. I love it. I've changed more lives with that than I have with modern medicine. Like just so you know, I had something called trigeminal neuralgia here. That's the most excruciating nerve pain. I couldn't touch my hair. Okay. Look, I could touch my face now. It changed my life. I'll never stop activating my genes.
How do you think you got it? I mean, was it just environmental or?
Autoimmune? Yeah, I think part of the autoimmune is hereditary, right? Like asthma, right? Asthma, eczema, psoriasis. Some of these are all autoimmune. These are all autoimmune problems. Asthma, eczema, psoriasis, Hashimoto's thyroid, MS, rheumatoid. So they ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, IBS. They're all autoimmune. They have a family component to them, but I believe it's environmental factors that can make them come out or not. So like say with my grandma with diabetes, it ran in her family, but she had the power to suppress that gene or express it. And I believe the things that in the environment make it come out. Like for me, I was in a bad motor vehicle accident, and maybe it was the trauma of that and the multiple surgeries. But I believe you have a family genetic component to it, but it does not mean you're going to express that gene. I've had a patient that came in with a cough. He weighed like 300 pounds. His blood pressure was high, his sugars were high that day. And he's like, it runs in the family. But once I took a further history and I realized how mom was cooking for him and what he was eating in the sedentary lifestyle, I'm like, she taught you to eat that way in sedentary lifestyle. That led to the weight gain, and that caused the high blood pressure and the diabetes. Once I empowered him to realize, helped him diet and exercise, he lost 100 pounds. His sugars went to normal, his blood pressure went to normal, and his knee pain was better. So you have a family component, but I believe it's what you put in your body and on your body that might trigger, or it might be an auto accident or a car accident, a surgery, like a trauma.
Yeah. My mom had an accident and she wasn't seriously hurt, but immediately she hadn't had gray hair before. And I remember within like 3 weeks, she'd had this huge chunk of gray hair from,
Wow.
it was the body just went like, because
Stress.
people that have been through stress and they will go, I'm not saying everyone, but you will notice that they get gray hair quicker. And yeah, it was weird. My mom just literally from the stress just went, this huge chunk of gray hair. I was like, whoa. Like by about 3 weeks after the accident, I just remember looking at her and going, interesting.
And it's true. People that activate their genes are saying they're having less gray hair. I haven't dyed my hair in a really, maybe a couple of years, and I'm not doing too bad. But yeah, they're saying they're getting less gray hair, and I didn't believe them at first. until I was going to my hairdresser and she's like, oh, wait, you don't need your hair dyed. I don't think I'll ever dye again, just to be honest. So I think I'm gonna go all gray, you know. Too many chemicals. I tried the natural stuff.
Right. So just a little bit off topic. There was something that
Yeah.
you said about spending your life savings on childhood friends.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes, you had asked me, I don't recall the exact question, but yes, something that sums me up. That was me. When I was little, I grew up poor at like in an upper middle class community, but my grandma basically spent her whole life savings fighting for custody for me and my brother. So I grew up poor and I learned to work really hard at a young age. So when I was little, I would be like creating drawings and colorings and selling them house to house to my neighbors, right? And I had like $7 in change. And I grew up in the 70s. I'm gonna date myself. That was a lot of money for back then. You know, I'd sell like a drawing for like, I don't know, 3 cents a nickel. So to have 7 in change is a lot of money. So I saved up all this money and I would watch the ice cream truck go by every day. And I finally had enough money, but I didn't want to spend it on the ice cream, right? Because I'm like, man, I worked so hard for, you know, all this money. And anyway, so eventually I decided, I thought, wait, I'm gonna get an ice cream. So I ran up to my piggy bank that was really a shoebox because I figured if I bought a piggy bank, I had no money to put in the piggy bank, right? So I ran up to get some of the coins and I went back down and there was kids there. And they didn't have money. So I'm like, okay, here, right? So then I run back home and I'm thinking, God, I hope he's still there. I'm finally getting my ice cream, right? So I did this like 2 or 3 trips. There was more kids there because they hear the music of the truck. So I kept giving the kids my money. And then I'm like, man, all right, I'm just gonna grab the rest of my life savings. So anyway, it must have been like a dozen kids or something, but they all got ice cream. And I was like, yes. And then I looked down and I had like 2 coins. And I'm like, I'm looking up at the man, like, did I have enough for my own ice cream? And that was so sad because I don't remember ever getting that ice cream. But the point is, I just worked so super hard and I always just gave everything to everybody. These kids probably don't remember me by now. But that story pretty much sums me up. You know, I'll give you my last crayon and then I will be able to draw. Yeah, that pretty much sums me up. Um,
Yeah, I've been in some really poor countries, and sometimes they are the most giving people I've known. And
yes.
I remember being in Burma, Myanmar, and the guy who was there's a place called Bagan, and it has all these temples. It's like inside the temples are like gazillions of Buddhas, and it's just beautiful. Now a lot of people take hot air balloons over it, but then the only way to, because it's beautiful at sunrise. So this guy had a horse cart. So I hired him to like wake up, you know, at 4 a.m. and take me out so I could climb these things and be out there at sunrise. And then he's like, you have to come to dinner to my house. And so I went, and these people like had almost nothing, but they're sitting there and they were feeding me with their hands.
Yes.
And it's like throughout Burma, the first time I went to Bali, which was a very long time ago, I'm going to date myself and say it was like almost 30 years ago. It was like, I was quite young when I was traveling first. And I stayed with the family. I was going in like a jeepney thing, and the guy next to me, he's like, I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm an artist. And I said, I'm a designer. It's kind of like an artist too. And he's like, come stay at my home. And then I spent a month in Bali, and these people, you know, he's an artist. He didn't have that much money, but you know, it's a respected career, very respected career in Bali. And they had so much fun dressing me up and taking me in festivals. Like, here's our foreigner. We have a foreigner. Like, Balinese person with these see-through little tops and things. I'm like, but they had so much fun just like feeding me and giving me things. I found so many places because I've traveled a lot, like 24 countries by the time I was 24. And
Wow.
it's like, you see it, the poorest people appreciate.
Yes.
And my grandma lived through the depression, and she used to say,
Yes.
nobody would steal because they knew nobody else had anything, and if they had something, they worked really hard. But she said if you needed something, people would always give it to you. And
Yes.
that was
I
during
learned it from my grandma.
yeah, and that was
To
the
give,
time
give,
when
give.
people, like, you know, there was such solid community that, you know, if
Yes.
someone was really hard up, you could try to help them out.
someone's sick, you bake them something, you take it to their house so they don't have to cook. And, and I kind of
I
miss,
miss, yes. I so miss those days. My grandma taught me that she would always give her last dollar as the tip. She didn't have money, but she would give that last dollar as the tip. And I learned it from her. It's good and bad. It's not good for my wallet, but good karma does come back. It might come back from different people. I know one day I'll cash it all in and it'll come back. Yes, and it does, you're right. That's a good observation. It does seem like sometimes the poorest people give the most, right? Yeah, how many videos did you see of the homeless man that's sharing his food? And the guy with the suit just walks by and then goes into his Mercedes.
yeah.
Mm,
I think it's when people get to a certain point financially that they lose touch with how that human connection of just like, let's just share this. I don't have much, but it's enough for both of us to, share. And
yes.
do you know Viktor Frankl? He wrote
Mhm.
Man's Search for Meaning, I think it's called. And he was a Holocaust victim, and his whole thing was that the people that survived were the ones who had the mindset, and they were the ones that if they got half a piece of bread, they would give it to, their
Yes.
family. And it was more the like, this is we're creating our own, life is an illusion. Let's just
Reality.
create our own, how we react to reality. We create that. So let's create it, create it well. And I was a volunteer at a TEDx, and the speaker was the disciple of Viktor Frankl. And so he had a book, and he came and he was talking about it. And the whole theme of the TEDx was resilience, like radical resilience. And
Yes.
it was just talking about, people in the community that had gone through things. And most people, and I find this like with people that I interview on this, that they've usually gone through some sort of trauma, and they come out the other side and go like, my gosh, I want to help other people so they don't have to go through that. And
Yes, that's how I find I am with all of my struggling, and the doctors just blow me off, take another med, take another med, take another med. I want to expedite that journey for other people. They can learn from my mistakes and not only learn from it, but expedite their own journey. So to save them a ton of time. And I think you're very wise. Mindset is huge, powerful, because when my grandma, God rest her soul, when she was 79, I was away in college, and after I graduated nursing, I noticed she had stopped walking. And I literally then carried her into the doctors. And the doctors basically like, oh, you're 79, And I'm like, oh no, hell no, 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 no. So she asked me, do you ever think I'll walk again? Like, now she's looking up to me, right? Because I'm the nurse. I'm a brand new nurse. I have no idea what I'm doing yet. I was brand new. And I'm thinking, if I get to the cause, I can find the solution. I'm like, yes, you're going to walk again. And because I gave her that belief, then we did consistent action steps, stretching and strengthening, and she walked again. But I think if I told her, like the doctors did, you're 79, no, she wouldn't have tried and done it. I mean, mindset's huge. There's a lot of people here in the US that use their background of growing up, how they grew up, as an excuse, right? Well, oh, my parents were divorced, my dad was in jail, my this, my that. I've had most of those struggles, but I didn't use that as an excuse. I was like, man, I don't want to be like them. So I mean, we all have excuses if we want, and we can use them, or we could decide not to be like that. And I'm just so sick of people's excuses. I am, because I had a rough childhood.
yeah. And okay, we're running over time, but I wanted to just close up with one thing.
Yes.
There was a point when I was little, I was terrified of sharks. Thank you, Jaws. And we went to Hawaii when I was a little kid, and I don't know if you ever saw Jaws, but the kid
Yes.
got eaten. He was on this little raft that was blue and red, like on both sides. We went to Hawaii, and my mom rented my sister and I that raft, and we're sitting there like, we're not going in the water. My mom's like, come on, here's a raft. It was like, no, 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 no. And I was terrified of sharks. So what I did was I learned to dive, and went to the Maracaibo Archipelago during an El Nino when there was a lot of pelagic activities, which means there's a ton of sharks. So I'm just telling you because there's something similar that you did.
Yes.
So let's hear about that.
Well, I was scared of heights, so I went skydiving. And I had a blast. I loved it. It was amazing. Like, I held on to the videographer's hand and we did some intentional spins. I got down on the ground. I'm like, let's go again. It did help me conquer my fear of heights. The shark thing, well, I did have a shark kind of chase me once, but not really. I was in the Caribbean snorkeling or scuba diving, and I saw a shark. I didn't know. I ran back. I like swam as fast as I can back to the boat, and then I found out it was probably just like one of those reef sharks or sand sharks that usually don't bother people. But I didn't know that at the time when I was in the water. I went skydiving. I loved it, and in fact, one of my newest clients, she had pain for 20 something years. Her passion was to skydive, and she hadn't been skydiving in over 20 years because the pain was holding her back. She was on pain pills every day, anti-inflammatories, going to the chiropractor 3 times a week. She started activating her genes. She had an underlying, I think, autoimmune problem, and the doctor was just treating the spine. So once she started activating her genes, now keep in mind, her pain level, 10 being the worst, was an 8 on average, up to a 10 at times, lasting for 3 days. So after she started activating her genes, she's off the anti-inflammatories, off the pain pills, not needing to go to the chiro anymore, and just went skydiving for the first time in over 20 years. So that's a life changer. Like, I love the activating the genes. That lights me up, really. You see that.
Okay, so thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This thanks to the power of Wi-Fi, right? You're in Hong Kong, I'm in Long Island, New York. It's actually Independence Day here. I'm surprised there's not more booms going off in the background. Fireworks.
It's a beautiful morning, 4th of July here in Hong Kong. And so, yeah, we're exactly 12 hours apart. So we were doing this at my 10 a.m. and your 10 p.m.
Yeah. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so this goes live on the Conscious Business Strategies podcast, and it's streaming right now into the high ticket mastery for conscious coaches group, the Facebook group. So
nice. Oh, can we drop my web link or something, the way they can get in touch with me?
yeah. Well, I'll put it on the podcast so that people can get in touch with you.
I have a new one now. worldwellnessexpert.com.
Ooh, that's cool.
So either ShanaMelissa.com or worldwellnessexpert.com. Either way.
I still have Sheli.com, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch. Those are the only 2 I pretty much use now, or the book one. I don't want to confuse people.
Yeah, I probably have about 30 different domains, but I set up my first web development in '96, so I kind of did a land grab of sorts. But
yeah, I changed it a few times. I had biohack NP. I still have that one too.
right. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's do this again in the future, because I love your vibe energy. And I mean, so many healers, like there's so many healers that I'm connected with in Hong Kong, like literally hundreds just in little tiny Hong Kong. And the world is getting smaller and smaller in terms of like the people that are working in the consciousness space, the people that are working to help other people. And that's why I started this podcast, was like for people that are making a positive impact on the world. And we need to be connected so that we can be like, getting together and helping build.
Yes.
So,
and thank you for inviting me, because I love your energy. You're just an altruistic team player. So thank you.
okay. Thanks.
Hi, my friend.